Greetings to each and all this day in Christ. We've gathered in sacred space and time ordained to remember one specific moment in our common history and all that flowed from it. The remembrance of that moment is painful but brief. November 1975, when someone set fire to this house of prayer. If you've been here the last few hours, you've probably seen the videos or the pictures or heard some stories. Let's recite a little of what we know. The 26th was a Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. The evening before, a service took place in McClintock Chapel. It was a snowstorm, so there were just two people present for the service, a priest and a parishioner, the faithful Canon Robert Temple and the faithful Dorothy Burgess. It is noteworthy that upon reflection, the door to the chapel was remembered to have opened and closed, but no third person ever joined the service. They left at 6 p.m. At about 12:30, Patrolman Ed Klump was driving down 8th Avenue and heard the sound of breaking glass. He thought perhaps the cathedral was being broken into and pulled around the corner, shut his lights off, and heard the sound of glass hitting the pavement. Then he saw the smoke coming out of the places where the glass had broken. At 12:39, the first alarm sounded. Chief Donald Gleason responded in car 101, along with the number 2 and number 4 engine companies and the number 2 snorkel, which had a platform that allowed firefighters to work from 85 feet in the air. Upon arrival, no flames were yet visible, but smoke was billowing out. So they laid 2 lines to the west and 1 to the east and got to work. Then they attempted entry from the west. A door was forced open. They were met with superheated air. The door was sucked back out of their hands. The chief ordered the door shut and secured. They backed up through the muck and snow, fearful of a backdraft explosion. 8 minutes later, with flames venting from the roof, a second alarm was ordered. The ceiling was 65 feet high. The room was full of oxygen and wood. Getting the 22-ton snorkel up the slope in the snow was no easy task. But once it was in place, we commenced tower operations. Chief quickly assessed the danger of the fire spreading to the west, and a third alarm was called. The number 7 engine deployed to the south side to feed the number 5 engine company. Then the ceiling beams collapsed. Above the blaze now in the cathedral, smoke and snow, and the orange glow so many have shared with me that they saw that night. Beyond all that, the gray of clouds and blue velvet of night and the tang of char on the air. Beside the blaze, 48 firefighters and specialty personnel rowing together in 6 inches of snow to bring the fire to heel in what would amount to a 4-hour battle. We are grateful for you. Bishop Turner and his wife called my predecessor, Dean Leslie Scary Olson, who had just gotten back in Topeka from California, where he had been to a family funeral. Dean Olson arrived in his California clothes, did an early assessment, and went home for a quick change into warmer clothing. As the fire began to get under control, Junior Warden Roy Ridgway convinced the fire inspector to go with him to the vesting sacristy, and they carried out banners and vestments. They made 4 trips in and out. Many other concerned parishioners and community members came. and a human chain formed to save communion vessels, candlesticks, crosses, altar linens, flagons, a baptismal ewer, and some pictures. Water was pumped out to save the crypts below the altar. Other church environs were judged safe enough to work as meeting and worship spaces. Firefighters salvaged and overhauled, checking for any hidden embers or hotspots. There were, thank God, no deaths or injuries. Many precious, one-of-a-kind items were lost. Many precious, one-of-a-kind items were saved. 5,150 total feet of 2.5-inch hose line, 274 feet of ladders, 659,620 gallons of water. The first thing we have to do is stop crying, I guess, and start getting it cleaned up as much as we can so we can start rebuilding, Dino told a hastily assembled press conference in the daylight. What he knew in that moment was that the decision to rebuild on this same spot had already been made, even as the ruins still smoked in those dark early morning hours. The bishop and the dean and the senior warden and the junior warden had decided it, set it firm and fast. No one would ever countermand that decision. You may well have your own details from that time, if you were here, if you remember, or maybe you've heard others talk. I hope you will join us for a reception after this service and help one another to fill in those details. It has long seemed to me that the watchword for all of this might be the counsel contained by St. Paul in the 4th chapter of the 2nd letter to the Corinthians. Listen to these words in light of the story you just heard. We do not proclaim ourselves. We proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord. For it is the God who said, "Light will shine out of darkness," who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God. But we have this treasure in clay jars, so that it may be made clear that this extraordinary power belongs to God and does not come from us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed, always carrying around in the body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be made visible. So we do not lose heart. Even though our outer nature is wasting away, our inner nature is being renewed day by day. For our slight, momentary affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all measure, because we look not at what can be seen, but at what cannot be seen. For what can be seen is temporary, but what cannot be seen is eternal. My friends, God calls us each day to look upon those things we carry as crosses, as real and as painful as they may be, and to regard them in the light of eternity, from the view of heaven, as it were. To see them increasingly as God sees them, and know that when the outward nature wastes away, when the jar falls apart, What remains is what normally cannot be seen, and when that is revealed, the glory of God shines forth. The life of Jesus shines forth. Fire is a formidable force, and we must face it bravely with all the tools at our disposal. When it reaches to destroy, its hand must be stayed. Yet in the final accounting, all it has presented us with is what Paul calls a slight momentary affliction. And into the space left by that moment in time, this community has poured its hopes and prayers, its worship and its service. This cathedral continues undaunted as a site for the life of this community to be lived in. We continue to be present at holidays, baptisms, weddings, funerals, and of course in the regular rotas of prayer and the celebration of the Eucharist together, the sharing of Christ's body and blood. When life and society grow uncertain, cold or chaotic or coarse, the cathedral steps up to offer something inspirational and beautiful and healing, something of God that calls to mind our better nature. The life of Jesus is proclaimed here as saving good news. It is etched into every stone, and the hallowing of God's name echoes across these walls in story and song and prayer. We are here, still here, astonished and grateful. Thanks be to God.